I hope you guys enjoyed that interview. Hope Jason had a good time. I'd love to have him back on when he has another big article. There's a lot of things I didn't get to mention, but we had time issues. The book really was just chock full of interesting stories from times at Blizzard. Well, this part I underlined. Let's see. I'm just looking at random things I underlined. There was a woman who worked 8 years at Blizzard, Erica Rodriguez, okay? She's like, she worked there for 8 years. She loved Blizzard. She asked for a raise. They don't give it to her. She goes to Riot Games. They give her double her salary. She comes back to Blizzard and says, hey, can you match this? I'd love to work here. I love working at Blizzard. Like, if you can just match it or even get close, I will stay at Blizzard. Her manager goes, don't worry. I'm going to find out. I'm going to go talk to the higher ups. He comes back with a number. He looks at her. He goes, they gave me a number. It's so insulting, I'm not even gonna tell you. You should go to Riot. That's crazy. That's crazy, dude. Good manager? Yeah, I mean, well, he had no shot of winning that argument, you know? That's so, yeah, anyway, there's a lot like that in here. A lot like that in here. One of the big stories we didn't talk about at all, and if you don't follow Blizzard, you might have even heard of this, but I mentioned the first public failure of Blizzard being Heroes of the Storm. And I know some of you like Heroes of the Storm. I'm not saying it was like the world's worst game or anything, but Heroes of the Storm was the first time that Blizzard came out with a game and they were number 3, you know? It was like, they didn't beat League of Legends, they didn't beat Dota. And like, Blizzard is number 3. They're like they're the small one. It was like it was like, whoa, the hit factory might be over. You know, it was just weird. It was like, I definitely noticed it working in the industry. And I was a young guy, but I was like, this wasn't a smash hit. It was like, okay. And then it kind of fell off. Their biggest failure internally was a game called Titan. There's a big, arc in this book about how, World of Warcraft is a hit and they're like, well, we got to make another World of Warcraft. We got to make another MMO that's huge. And so they put not billions, maybe hundreds of millions of dollars, a lot of money and many years to making this game called Titan. And it was supposed to be a new MMO. They can't get it. They can't get it to work. It's never really that fun to play. And it's considered this big disaster internally. Thankfully, a smaller team takes all the assets from that, all like the art and the design and some of the characters, they rip it out and they shove it into a shooter game and call it Overwatch. And it ends up being a huge hit, but like, they barely salvaged what had been a massive disaster. Like, it really was like the first internal huge Blizzard failure. We also never talked about all the canceled Blizzard projects. Like, they had a StarCraft shooter called StarCraft Ghost that was very far along in years of development that gets canceled. There's a guy at Blizzard who's been pitching every year to make a new RTS game. He's like, please let me make Warcraft 4. Please let me make StarCraft 3. I'll even make a Call of Duty RTS. Just let me make an RTS game. And they keep telling him no. Is Overwatch built from Titan's corpse? No, 100%. Titan, the MMO, had a section where it was like PvP combat, where you could play as like Jumper and like, different character archetypes. Jumper became Tracer. They yoinked it all. It was like this world, this beautiful utopian world. They yoinked it all. They made a shooter out of it, and it was a surprise hit. It almost got canceled. They were like, this is not even worth it. But then Bobby Kotick goes to a meeting and he's like, he looks at the character portrait of all of the Overwatch characters. Bobby Kotick, the original Overwatch gooner, dude. He looked at the character portrait of all the Overwatch characters and he said, this is awesome. These characters are so cool. So all the Activision guys were behind it and they got the money to finish it and they made Overwatch. He was right. The characters are the coolest part of Overwatch. I mean, that's what made the game stand out. He was a big Widowmaker fan. Actually, it was funny. They have a part in this book where they talk about it, and his favorite character was Torbjorn, and Bobby Kotick was like, this character's never been done before. And it shows like the internal monologues of the Blizzard employees, and they're like, that's our most boring character. Torbjorn is literally just a dwarf. Like that, we've had 1 million of these in our own company. It's just very, very fun. He's just the engineer from TF2 with a Blizzard dwarf skin. It was like the least groundbreaking character, but that was the one Bobby Kotick liked, and it got the game greenlit, and it was a big success outside of the Overwatch League. It's also funny, I knew about this from my own personal experience, but the Blizzard side of it shows just how much of Overwatch's failure comes from the Overwatch League. Like, Overwatch as a game was very successful. And then they made it an esport. And the esport was such a disaster. It poisoned the community. It took all this time and energy away. Like, all of the artists and staff on Overwatch had to constantly make new logos and art and skins just to keep the Overwatch League happy. which, you know, really poisoned their, made them unhappy. The developers, a small team, you know, made them unhappy, made the Overwatch League unhappy, made the gaming audience more toxic. Like, it really caused Overwatch to be worse than I think it would have been. I think if Overwatch had been more of a for fun, casual game with no league, maybe fan run esports, it would have been way more successful. It might still be running, dude. I mean, they had to make a sequel because to try and save it. And then the PvE, dude. The PvE Overwatch 2, you know, we've made fun of it a lot on this stream, but you get to hear some internal stories. Like, it's so crazy how much time they spent trying to make the PvE work, only to cancel it because, you know, the bosses couldn't wait any longer. They just wanted money. They just needed Overwatch 2 out. Now that it's been scrapped, it's insane. Like, there's no reason for Overwatch 2. The entire reason of Overwatch 2 was for PvE. But like, they just ran into so many problems. Like for example, if you're playing Widowmaker in Overwatch, your ult lets you see people through the walls, right? How does that ult help you when all of the enemies are NPCs? There's hundreds of them and they're all on a pattern. Like, they couldn't figure out how to adapt. They were struggling and they kept asking for more time. And then Activision got very annoyed and forced them to, because it was switched to 5v5. Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned at the beginning of this thing, like Overwatch said, we need to make a sequel because it'll be important for esports. We'll go 5v5 to make it easier to watch. And we're gonna add a big PvE mode. And instead, all they did was no PvE mode, cancel the esport, and now they're removing it back to 6v6. So there really was no reason at all. Like, it's not like the graphics are better. It doesn't need to exist. The sequel was the biggest joke. Oh, we didn't talk about that. Do you guys not have phones moment? Dude, you know, if you guys don't know, there's this famous BlizzCon where Blizzard had dick all to announce. Just nothing in the tank.
Is there any plans to make this playable on PC, or is this strictly mobile forever?
We don't have any plans at the moment to do PC. Do you guys not have phones?
Yeah, you guys all have phones.
So anyway, this is 2018. I mean, this is like, again, based on this book and based on my own experiences, Blizzard really starts to hit a wall around 2015, 16. And then it's like bad news, like everything gets worse every year after 2015, 16. Like Heroes of the Storm is 2015, 16. And that's the first like, uh-oh, what's going on here? And then it's like, just bad things keep happening, right? So by 2018, they have this BlizzCon and they don't have anything to announce. And internally they're talking about it. They're like, well, we have Diablo Immortal. Diablo Immortal is Diablo for phones, you know? And it's like, people are gonna love that. Like, that's gonna be great. Like, that's gonna be as exciting as Overwatch was in 2016. It's gonna be like such a big deal. They're having this internal battle where some people are like, no, it's not. Like, no, it's not. Like, there's some Blizzard employees like, this is gonna be really bad. And then others, especially Activision higher ups, are like, no, this is gonna be great. People love mobile games. Look at the numbers. And like, they don't understand the culture of what BlizzCon and Blizzard, they're way more PC gamers at BlizzCon. Anyway, and so they come out there and they reveal it and it's like kind of booed. It's like not exciting. And then they say, do you guys not have phones? And that clip goes omega viral. What sucks is though, like this guy gets blamed. And it's like, this guy is not at fault at all. And this happens a lot with Blizzard. Even, I didn't get into it because I didn't remember the exact names and I didn't want to misquote somebody or get it wrong. But there's a guy in this book who was like extremely helpful to women who were being like harassed at Blizzard. He's like, he's a good person who was like helping shield them and warn them and help them. And this guy, he's in a photo that they all took in what they called the Cosby Suite. Like, there's this iconic photo that came out of Blizzard employees where they're all holding a Bill Cosby photo in a Cosby, in a hotel room. And this guy was a good person, as far as I can understand. But his name gets published with this photo, and, you know, he gets fired and it ruins his reputation. What you find out is, I mean, listen, we all know Bill Cosby now as a horrendous predator, and it was terrible. But before the allegations were revealed about Bill Cosby, the joke was he had ugly sweaters. And they called it the Cosby Suite because the floor looked like a Cosby sweater. There was a lot of predation at Blizzard. It was a terrible place. But that suite was not, it was just very, it's very, look, you hear Jason talk. Jason is not a person who's like trying to defend a predator here. But like, if you read the close interviews, it's like, there's women talking about how this guy was really helpful and like a good person. So it's crazy how sometimes the wrong person gets the blame and the villains are walking away. Like, a lot of the villains in this book of, you know, taking advantage of women at the company are like higher ups. There's so many like higher ups at Blizzard who dated employees or married employees or cheated on their wife with employees. It wasn't really like rank and file people as much. Dude, there's a story in here if you really want drama. There's a story in here of a guy who worked at Blizzard. He married a woman at Blizzard, and then a higher up, one of the leads on World of Warcraft, like very powerful person at Blizzard. He also married a woman at Blizzard. So there's 2 Blizzard couples. The husband of one of the couples and the wife of one of the couples meet each other playing World of Warcraft and then divorce. They each divorce their spouse and get married. So it's like a Blizzard 4-person messy love triangle. But the problem is for the husbands, one of them is an employee of the boss, you know? He stole his boss's wife and then left his own pregnant wife. And then there's all sorts of like, relationships are messy, right? I can't pry into it and know too much, but it's very messy. And it's hard for people to be objective as like performance reviews when the guy is now like the guy is now married to your former wife. And so like it got very complicated, right? It got very complicated and it led to a lot of like targeted passed over promotions and things like that. It's wild.